What if the reason your memory is getting worse has nothing to do with aging? What if there is a specific protein your brain stopped producing years ago? That shift you've been feeling, it's real, and it has a specific cause. My name is Dr. Gloria Reed. I've spent over 2 decades studying how the brain changes after 60. And what I'm about to show you might be the most important part of all. Before I explain the mechanism behind what is happening in your brain, I want to give you something you can use today, something concrete, before we get into any science. Here it is. Every morning before you eat anything, warm up a cup of water or plain broth, not coffee, not tea, and steep 1 teaspoon of dried lion's mane mushroom pieces in it for 15 minutes. Then drink it slowly. That is it. That is the action. Why does this work? Because lion's mane contains compounds called hericenones, and when they are activated through hot water extraction, not through a capsule, not through a powder, but through heat and water specifically, they cross the blood-brain barrier and directly stimulate the production of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. We will get into exactly what that does in a moment. But here is what you need to know right now. BDNF is the protein your brain needs to maintain and grow the connections between neurons. Without it, those connections weaken. With it, they rebuild. Keep that morning extraction in mind, because when I show you the full protocol later, this piece is what makes everything else work. The timing, the preparation method, the fact that it is consumed on an empty stomach, none of that is arbitrary. All of it has a reason. Most people believe that memory loss after 60 is simply the brain wearing out, like a machine with too many miles on it. And that is not entirely wrong. There are real biological changes that happen with age. But here is the part that changes everything, and that almost nobody explains. The brain does not just passively deteriorate, it responds. It is constantly taking signals from the environment, from what you eat, from how you sleep, from what you expose it to, and it is either growing new connections or allowing old ones to decay. The deciding factor is a single protein. That protein is BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is what researchers call the brain's fertilizer. It is produced naturally inside your brain. It circulates through brain tissue, and its job is to keep neurons alive, help them form new connections, and help the brain adapt to new information. In younger adults, the brain produces plenty of it. After 60, production declines significantly, and in people with early cognitive symptoms, levels are often 30 to 50% below what they were in their 40s. BDNF deficiency is the hidden villain in most cases of age-related cognitive decline, not aging itself, not genetics. The loss of this specific protein, which is measurable, addressable, and reversible in many cases. Here is what most people are never told. BDNF deficiency has no dramatic symptom. It does not cause pain. It does not show up on a standard blood panel. What it causes is a slow dimming, words that come less quickly, conversations that take more effort to follow, names that sit just out of reach, the things most people chalk up to getting older. Before I go further, have you ever tried a memory supplement or followed standard memory advice and felt like nothing really changed? Just comment yes or no below. I want to know, because what comes next is specifically for people whose answer is yes. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain cells. Every neuron in your brain needs a constant supply of it to stay healthy, to maintain its connections to other neurons, and to form new ones when you learn something or try to recall a memory. Without adequate BDNF, neurons are like plants in dry soil. They do not die immediately. They shrink first. The branches that reach toward other neurons, called dendrites, pull back. The connections thin out. Communication slows, And eventually, whole pathways that used to fire quickly and reliably simply stop firing. That is not a metaphor for what memory loss feels like. That is literally what is happening at the cellular level when BDNF levels fall. The word that vanishes mid-sentence, that is a connection that did not fire. The name you cannot retrieve, that is a pathway that thinned. And the background fog that makes everything feel slightly harder than it used to. That is the whole network running below capacity because it is not getting enough of the protein that keeps it functional. In 2020, a study published in the journal Aging and Disease, conducted by researchers at the National Institute on Aging, found that individuals over 60 with the lowest circulating BDNF levels showed significantly faster rates of hippocampal atrophy, the hippocampus being the primary region for memory formation and retrieval, compared to those with higher BDNF levels. The researchers concluded that BDNF level, not age alone, was the strongest predictor of memory trajectory in that decade of life. What the morning lion's mane extraction does specifically is introduce hericinones directly into the bloodstream through the gut wall, because they are fat-adjacent compounds that have been released by hot water from the mushroom's fruiting body. They cross the blood-brain barrier with relatively high efficiency, higher than most other plant compounds. Once inside the brain, they do not act as BDNF themselves. They act as a signal, a message to the brain's support cells called astrocytes to increase their own BDNF production. You are not supplementing BDNF from outside. You are stimulating your brain to make more of its own. That distinction matters, because BDNF that the brain makes itself is regulated, placed where it is needed, and sustained over time. It is not a spike. It is a restoration of a system that was underperforming. And that is exactly the kind of change that shows up not as a sudden jolt, but as a gradual clearing, words coming back more easily, focus holding longer, the mental effort that used to accompany simple tasks beginning to decrease. The second mechanism is related but distinct, and understanding both is what explains why the results compound over time rather than plateau. Lion's mane mushroom contains a second class of active compounds called erinacines, found primarily in the mycelium, the root structure beneath the fruiting body. Erinacines stimulate the production of nerve growth factor, or NGF. If BDNF is the fertilizer that keeps existing neurons alive and connected, NGF is the signal that encourages the growth of entirely new nerve tissue. Think of NGF as the contractor who does not just maintain the house, but builds new rooms. The brain, even in adults over 60, retains a limited but real capacity for neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons, primarily in the hippocampus. For decades, scientists believed this capacity was essentially zero in adults. A landmark 2019 study published in Nature Medicine, led by Dr. Maura Boldrini at Columbia University, confirmed that neurogenesis continues into very late adulthood and that the rate of it is directly influenced by molecular signals including NGF. When erinacines stimulate NGF production, they are effectively telling the hippocampus to keep building, not at the rate of a 25-year-old, but meaningfully, measurably, enough to counteract some of the shrinkage that BDNF deficiency allowed to occur. These two mechanisms do not work in isolation. They feed each other. BDNF keeps the existing network alive and connected. NGF encourages new growth. Address only one, and you get partial results. Address both simultaneously, which is what the full warm extraction protocol does, because it activates compounds from both the fruiting body and, when prepared correctly, the mycelium. And you create conditions for the kind of cognitive improvement that people notice and that people around them notice. That is the part almost no one talks about, and it is also the part that actually works. Before I walk you through exactly how to do this, I want to be direct with you. What I am describing is not a replacement for medical care. If you are on medication, speak to your doctor before adding anything new. What this is an evidence-supported, low-risk addition that works alongside what you are already doing. The research behind it is real, and the risk profile is well established and mild. Most people who try lion's mane do one thing that completely cancels the benefit. They buy capsules. Capsule and powder forms of lion's mane are the most widely sold products in this category, and the problem is not that they contain no active compounds. They do. The problem is bioavailability. Hericenones and erinacines are heat-activated. The extraction process, hot water breaking down the cell walls of the mushroom's fruiting body, is what frees those compounds and makes them bioavailable. Without that extraction, the compounds are locked inside the chitin structure of the mushroom cell wall. The human digestive system cannot break down chitin efficiently, so most of what is inside those capsules passes through without ever entering the bloodstream. There is a secondary problem. Most commercial capsule products are made from mycelium grown on grain substrate, not from the actual fruiting body of the mushroom. Mycelium on grain products contain significantly lower concentrations of hericenones and high concentrations of starch from the grain. You are often paying for a product that is mostly oat or rice flour with trace amounts of mushroom. Here is the correct way. What you need is the dried fruiting body of lion's mane mushroom, Hericium erinaceus, not mycelium on grain. You can find this at well-stocked grocery stores, Asian markets, or reputable online suppliers. It should be clearly labeled as fruiting body, not mycelium, and not simply mushroom blend. Every morning, before eating anything, bring 8 to 10 ounces of water to just below boiling, around 180 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Add 1 teaspoon of dried, crumbled lion's mane fruiting body pieces, not powder pieces. The cell walls need physical surface area for extraction. Let it steep for 15 full minutes, covered, to prevent heat loss. Then strain and drink it slowly over 5 to 10 minutes. The empty stomach is not optional. Food, particularly fats and proteins, competes with the absorption pathway that hericenones use in the gut. On an empty stomach, absorption is estimated to be 2 to 3 times higher than with food. After you finish the extract, wait at least 20 minutes before eating breakfast. Your first meal should include some dietary fat, eggs, avocado, olive oil, because once the hericenones have crossed the gut wall, they need fat-soluble transport to reach the brain efficiently. Do not combine lion's mane with blood-thinning medications without checking with your doctor. In rare cases, compounds in the mushroom can mildly affect platelet aggregation. For most people, this is not a concern, but if you are on anticoagulants, verify with your physician first. Continue this protocol daily, not intermittently. The BDNF and NGF stimulation compounds do not accumulate like a stored supplement. They need to be consistently present to maintain the signaling cascade. Missing occasional days is fine, but this is not a once-in-a-while practice. It is a daily one. What to expect? By day 7, most people notice one of 2 things. Either a slight improvement in morning mental clarity. The fog that usually takes an hour to lift begins lifting a little faster, or improved ease with word retrieval. The pauses that happen mid-sentence start getting shorter, not dramatically, not noticeably to anyone else yet, but you will feel it. By day 14, the changes become more consistent and a little more obvious. Word retrieval continues improving. Focus during conversations, especially in group settings with competing sounds, becomes slightly less effortful. Some people also notice that their sleep improves slightly because BDNF has a regulatory effect on sleep architecture, particularly slow-wave sleep. By day 30, the improvement is typically noticeable enough that other people comment. Conversations feel less like work, names and words come back more reliably. The sense that your brain is slightly behind you, that half-second delay between thinking and speaking, begins to close. Remember when I mentioned at the start, the protein your brain stopped producing enough of? By day 30, you are actively reversing that deficit. Not completely, not instantly, but measurably and sustainably, in a way that compounds the longer you continue. 3 additional things that amplify everything we have covered. First, sleep on your left side. The brain's glymphatic system, the overnight waste removal network that clears neurotoxic proteins from brain tissue, is 25% more active when you sleep on your side compared to your back. Sleeping on the left side specifically provides the most efficient drainage angle for the cerebral ventricles. Better waste clearance means the environment your new BDNF is working in is cleaner. 1 action, tonight, no cost. Second, 10 minutes of walking after your largest meal of the day, outside if possible. Zone 2 walking, the pace where you are slightly breathless but can still hold a full conversation, triggers a secondary BDNF release through a completely different pathway than the mushroom extract activates. It also blunts the post-meal glucose spike that, when repeated over months, contributes to insulin resistance in brain tissue. 10 minutes. After lunch. Outside. That combination covers multiple mechanisms simultaneously. Third, 5 minutes of structured breathing before you look at your phone in the morning. 4 counts in, 6 counts out, through the nose. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system before cortisol peaks for the day. Chronically elevated cortisol directly suppresses BDNF production, which means stress management is not a soft suggestion here. It is part of the biology. 5 minutes of breathing protects the work the morning extract is doing. Let me summarize what we covered today. Your brain produces a protein called BDNF that keeps neurons alive and connected. After 60, that production declines, and the cognitive changes most people attribute to aging are largely the result of that decline. Lion's mane mushroom, prepared as a 15-minute hot water extraction from the dried fruiting body, stimulates your brain to produce more of its own BDNF and activates a second pathway through NGF that supports new nerve growth. The protocol is simple, inexpensive, and supported by real research. Your brain did not develop this problem in a week. It will not fully recover in a few days. That is biology, not failure. What the research shows is that consistent, targeted action over 30 to 90 days produces changes that are real and that you will feel. The trajectory is reversible, not for everyone, not completely, but for most people who apply this consistently. Meaningfully. If you found this helpful, comment the word brain below. I read those comments and they help me understand which topics matter most to you so I can keep creating content that is actually useful. In the next video, I am going to show you something that will surprise you. How sleeping in one specific position can increase your brain's overnight cleaning process by 25%, and why most people are accidentally blocking it every single night. That video is already up, and I think you will want to watch it immediately after this one. Your brain is not broken. It adapted. And when you give it what it needs, it adapts back, not instantly, but reliably. I will see you in the next one.